I'm here with Simone again, and today we're going to tap into the archetype of Gene Key 51, Thunder over Thunder. And I'm so curious to hear if it wants to come through and speak to us and what we're going to find out.
Awesome. Let's see what 51 has to say. I like to communicate with the soul of the 51, the archetype of the 51st gene key. Will you please communicate with us? The first image I see, it was like a tank coming over a hill, like just really powering through over this hill. And the tank comes over the top of the hill and it just parks. And then the door opens up and all these beings are getting out. It's like, where are we? They're all looking around like, where are we? Where are we? Where are we? And some look behind and some go around the front and some go over and some are looking ahead. It's like they're covering all the bases, you know, all the options. Some walk all the way around. And now they feel like safe in their collective. It's like they made sure that everything was okay. It was okay for them to come out of the tank, if you will. And now they're setting up a picnic lunch. And some of them are sitting on the blanket, some of them are playing. And it's interesting, this other being who's like super huge, almost like bigger than the tank, is coming out of the tank. And it feels like the consciousness of all the group. So all that consciousness of that, you know, like the collective consciousness of everyone that was in that tank is now coming out of the tank, and it's bigger than the tank. Mm-hmm. So, and then it's interesting, that consciousness, it's like a piece of it went back to track back to each person who birthed the consciousness. And yet there is still part that is a consciousness outside of all the people. So it's an awareness in and of itself. The consciousness has awareness of it in itself. And then what happens is that that conscious awareness that was created from the collective, it's like it spreads out over the scene. It almost, another word would be, it like infiltrates the air, if you will. It's there. It's a vibrational consciousness that's all around them. And what it's saying is, notice what I'm showing you here. Each person had awareness, had consciousness, right? And that collective consciousness joined in the container that they were in. They moved out of the container, and that consciousness from the container is still alive. Mm-hmm. And each person has their individual consciousness back, you know, it's back connected to them. And yet the collective consciousness that was created from all of that consciousness is still there and influencing the park scene. So I can imagine, and I can actually feel in my body the difference of all those people being in this tank that was, you know, a small space, right? And that consciousness built up, and then they get out in their freedom. They're in the grass and green, and the sun is shining, and, you know, they have a picnic, and the whole, you know, so the vibrational difference between the two containers inside the tank and on this park-like scene is completely different. And yet that consciousness from the tank is still lingering there up above them. Mm. And the 51 wants us to understand that dynamic, that the consciousness we create individually and collective is all there. It's saying it doesn't stop you from creating new awarenesses, right? So when you're in that tank, when they were in their tank, they didn't know they would come out and be in a park and have a picnic and be safe and feel connected and whole and happy and joyful. And they didn't know that when they were in the tank, right? But and so then they have a new awareness. Oh, there's beauty, there's peace, there's love. We can come together in a new way outside of this tank. So it doesn't preclude new conscious awareness coming into play, but it wants us to know that what we created is still there
Mm,
and that we're aware of all of it,
yeah.
whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we acknowledge that the consciousness from the tank got out with us. It's still a part of us and our experience.
Hmm.
And it's saying, I know that you've all heard to choose your consciousness wisely, to contemplate what it is you want to bring to life. And I'm hoping that this awareness that the consciousness created in one situation is still infused in other situations is helping you right now
Hmm.
to really think about what it is you want to create in consciousness,
Right.
what you want to be aware of. And it's saying awareness isn't precluded to what you're aware of. So, what you're aware of, but just because you're either choosing or you're just not choosing but not aware of what's already created doesn't mean it's not there, influencing the field. It's there. And he says it's not only in the field, it's in your hearts. Because then what he showed me was I was going deep into the bodies. He was bringing my awareness into the bodies of the people sitting on the picnic, at the picnic. And I could feel that consciousness still alive in their hearts,
Hmm. Hmm.
even though they're no longer in the tank, even though they're no longer in that other situation. That's still in them. He's saying, I'm not trying to make thought wrong. I'm not making consciousness wrong. You're not wrong or right for any consciousness you have. It's simply an awareness that of everything that you birth and that it's with you.
Yeah.
It really wants to have a conversation with you.
Mm. Yeah, I can hear it saying, whatever we initiate, that is a seed that is planted. So that is that initiation that we see in the 51st gene key. And I also feel like it's speaking about both the programming partner, which is the 57, so the unease and the agitation that we're feeling, like being in a body that is not forever, being on an earth that is changing and evolving. Like there is this undercurrent that we feel in the body of the planet or ourselves, that is where they're in the shadow frequency, we call it agitation or unease. So I feel like that's something we have in us, but also the awareness of that is then what leads to the intuition, what leads to the initiation of planting the seeds. So I'm even wondering, I don't know, yeah, I feel like there is something there that I want to ask, and I don't know what I want to ask, but it has to do with that, also the shift of the experience in the tank into something that is serving us, because it feels sometimes that the agitation and the unease is something we run away from and we don't want to feel it, we just want to concentrate on the picnic. But I feel like there is a message of why is that agitation and unease important.
It says, indeed. That's part of what I'm bringing forth, in that It's not to be agitated with yourself that you created that. There is an awareness that it's a part of who you are. And it's not that that part has to live and manifest itself. You know, you were in the tank, you had they had the experience in the tank. It's not like that experience manifests itself in the garden, in the park, in the picnic, but it is still a part of who you are. And it's to acknowledge that part of who you are in yourself. And in the acknowledging, there's an integration, you know, of it within you, and to understand that you're choosing from all of who you are, the truth of all of who you are in each choice that you make, which is not wrong or right. It's just a part of who you are.
Hmm. Yeah. I was speaking with somebody today that I feel like it's because of that agitation and ease that there was like a fear to ground the intuition, because it feels like there's a kind of acceptance. And if we speak about thunder over thunder, there's a lot of electricity or energy in this. So how can human beings become more acceptance or friends with that agitation that almost is necessary for us to know what we're planting, what we're initiating?
Well, it's saying that I can use the human condition of addiction to illustrate what I would like to bring forth. So, a person who has had an addiction and then faces that addiction and transforms it. Everything that they did when they were addicted is still a part of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go away. That doesn't make them, once they have transformed whatever that was, it doesn't make them bad or wrong or less than. In fact, in your you know, in some aspects of your society, the addict who, you know, faces, contemplates, uh, understands and integrates and transforms that addiction, and then goes out and becomes a, you know, an important contributor, co-creator in your society. Many people look to those people with much respect for what they were able to transform and overcome. So that that person who is addicted, the being, is not less than because of those choices. In a sense, it's more than, because you know, there's a growth and an expansion because that person was able to actually look at the choices, integrate, accept, love, and then, you know, move into a higher vibration of self-love, and then thus love of other, you know, and work with other beings in peace, love, and harmony, um, or what, you know, whatever vibration in society. And so that's a metaphor for what you are asking me about, that you don't need to be an addict to overcome some massive addiction in order to integrate and to love, you know, yourself. He's using the word petty. Some of you have petty tendencies or things that you label as petty within yourself. Just because that's not an addiction doesn't mean you can't contemplate, identify, choose to operate at a higher vibration, integrate whatever that trait that you were critical of, and transform and be a higher vibrational person. But it's harder it's harder for people who haven't been labeled addict to go through that whole transformational cycle. But he says, ultimately, you're all doing it all the time, whether you have a labeled addiction or whether you're just choosing to continue expanding and being the higher version, you know, higher vibrational version of yourself, an expanded vibration of yourself. He says the people who contemplate the gene keys are in a constant contemplation and integration and transformation within themselves. But your society doesn't go, oh, you're working gene key 51, good job. You know, you've integrated fragments of yourself, you know, fragmented parts, you know, so the world doesn't pat you on the back, but it doesn't make the process that you go through any less than somebody who has, say, an addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was seeing a lot of other gene keys kind of coming in, but I want to focus on this one. So I'm going to ask a question, and if we say something else, we'll go with that. My question is, what is true initiation? What does initiation mean from the perspective of this archetype?
Wow, he showed me the lighting of a match. So it was like the spark, the moment. The initiation is the moment a fire is lit within you.
Mm.
That's how he showed it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be any spark.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like now I saw the first gene key. Before I saw the 24, I saw the 25, which is the harmonic. We need the universal love to have the courage to be initiated, basically, when we have that 25, 51. And I could also see the geometry of the 57, which is the programming partner, the intuition and unease. So I'm wondering why it looks like it's surrounded by so many other archetypes. Is it because it's too strong in itself, or why are they all there?
Well, he says that there are initiations through all kinds of ways.
Mm.
So, you know, you might think of initiation as you have, you know, something happen to you, you know, like where you have a baptism of sorts, you know, an ignition of sorts. But the reason why is because there's so many other gene keys that contribute to initiations
Right.
within people. So it can be a relationship that ignites the spark within you. It could be your relationship with another gene key, or you know, the shadow or wound from another key. So he says, and he shows it to me like a wagon wheel, you know, with the 51 at the center and a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
other gene keys, you know, completing the cycle of initiation, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
He says initiation doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, you know, he's making a joke. It's making a joke. It's like, well, of course, it's spontaneous combustion. You know, a person can initiate self. You know, you can sit in meditation and have initiations, but more often than, you know, oh, and then he turns the wagon wheel sideways, so I just see the rim, and the person is like sitting in lotus and becomes a flame. So like that's the the personal spark or initiation. But then he turns the wheel back sideways where I can see all the spokes and the center, and the person is still at the center, right? The individual is still at the center, but it really is a metaphor how much more initiations really happen through relationship
Right.
and through engagement with other gene keys, people,
Mm-hmm.
experiences, places can initiate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The spark is not, you know, how the spark ignites is not limited, it's really unlimited. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering, there's something in human design we say about the 51 wanting to be first. So how is that energy translated into the archetype?
The 51st wanting to be first, and how does that translate into the archetype? Okay. Well, okay, it's an interesting way that he showed it to me. So imagine we're looking at a wagon wheel, right? And all the spokes on the wagon wheel, but then if you cut that, it becomes a line, right? And it really depends on where you cut that. And now he's tying it to DNA, which I don't fully understand, but he's showing me the coils of the DNA, with all the and you can cut that anywhere. You can cut the wagon wheel anywhere, and it's like he's saying, it really just depends on where you want to dissect um the film, if you will. When he said the word film, he showed me like um, like a film reel, and it's like, where do you begin the film? You can choose, you film a bunch of stuff, and you can montage it any way you want to. And for some, initiation is a great place to start. So for some, the initiation is the first thing, and that initiation is the catalyst for the engagement in the other things. But for others, they don't need an initiation to have the contemplative process. He says the whole process of the gene keys is very much like what I'm describing. He says some people just see gene keys and they think, oh, that's for me, and they go start contemplating, right? They didn't have an initiation. They just started contemplating, and then as they contemplate, they have initiation after initiation, depending on what they're contemplating, how they're contemplating it, how they apply it in their life, what people they go and see. And then there are other people who have some kind of conscious initiation, an awareness, a spark, and then they know they need something, and then they find the gene keys, or they find whatever it is they find. So it's really a matter of how one enters the process, in a sense, and what's needed for that person's soul.
Yeah, because sometimes it feels that a bit what you were saying, that the 51 doesn't care about that something has to burn in order to get evolution or in order to get awakening. So that's kind of where it's fierce somehow. It's not even about coming first. It's about evolution and awakening. So it's in a human sense, when we say, oh, somebody has to gate 51, then we say it's wanting to come first, but it's actually wanting to awake, or like caring about awakening and being brave enough to say some things are going to have to burn up, because otherwise we're not ascending somehow, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's showing me how it's different for different people. Some people need, they need the combustion, they need that flame to ignite, to be the catalyst. And other people, it's more like, when you light a candle and you have to hold a match for a long time before it starts. So for other people, it's a more slow, awakening to it. And that the initiation is the whole process. It's not just the moment of the spark. It's the whole process of the flame burning. And different beings need different pathways, or it activates in people in different ways. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah, and I feel that burning sensation that this can be, or the agitation in the body, maybe that's why 25 was there in the 57, because in that process, whether it's fast or slow, to always bring it back to the intuition with the 57, to always remember that whatever has to burn up, love is still the core. So it feels like the 57 and 25 come in a way and make it more human than to just burn and not know almost what you are initiating somehow.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. He's just showing me pictures, like everything you just described. He flashed me a picture of each one of the things that you described in that in those possibilities.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel, and it's funny because we were speaking before that I have been burned, or that my apartment burnt down last year, and it's like I kind of hear, don't be afraid of the fire, but I, it's like, I don't know, but this is real fire. This is not like awakening. So I don't know.
It says, but sister, how much awakened with each fire that you experience?
Oh my God, there's like no, but we have to pay for awakening.
Right. So he's saying like how much awakened in each part of that process within you.
Right.
So each of those burns, in a sense, he's saying was a gift of awakening
Yeah.
in that moment. And he says, how much more aware are you now from the experience of the burning, the fire, right?
Mm.
Would you want to dial yourself back to pre-burn?
Yeah.
It doesn't think so. It
Mhm.
doesn't think you'd want to unexpand. It's acknowledging the expansive
Mhm.
processes, and journeys and conscious journeys. Like there's the journey of the physical vessel where we literally journey, but he's also pointing to your consciousness journey and how far you've traveled on your consciousness journey because of each of the burns, each
Right.
of the fires.
Mhm. Yeah, wow. This is coming so alive, and I feel like it's much more approachable, especially when we have those jinkies that have thunder twice, or that they are so hot so we can't touch them. And now I feel like we really got closer to the essence. So I want to thank the archetype, and I want to thank you, Simone.
You're so welcome. Let me just say thank you, to the archetype of Jinky. And it was like he gave us some energy that just kind of descended. So as I was watching it, I was like, oh, what is that? And it just felt like an energy that descended over us. Like it was like a gift that came into the field, almost like that consciousness that came out of the tank, but a gift directly from the archetype of the Jinky. So thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're so welcome.